enjoyment and entertainment, etc. Well, the reality is that the vast majority of the world, or much of the world, is still involved in idolatry. So it's still alive and well today. And furthermore, what it does is it creates this love in the minds of people, so much so that the artists, many times when you speak to artists or you hear artists talking about their works, they will talk about how they're trying to create something greater than life. Something greater than life, which embodies something which you can't even find in nature itself. This is their goal. And this is where it's a kind of like a challenge with the Creator. And this is why, one of the statements of the Prophet, may God's peace and blessing be upon him, that, on the Day of Judgment, those who are making the images will be asked to bring life back to their images in their challenge to the Creator, trying to imitate the Creator. Anyway, if we find an art lover, and they're told that, hey, this museum is burning down. There's a picture of Mona Lisa, Leonardo da Vinci's work, and there's a baby in there. You can only take one out. What are you going to take out? The art lover will not think twice. He'll say, I'll get the picture of Mona Lisa. We say, but what about the child? He'll say, well, there are many children born in the world. If we lose a child, no big deal. There's other kids being born. But if you lose the Mona Lisa, this is something invaluable. So that work of art takes on an even greater value than human life. This is the sad state that those who love images have reached. So from the Islamic perspective, the making of images, along with the production of music, has been prohibited in Islam to protect the society from the harm which comes from it. Of course, as I mentioned, the Muslim world today, in having deviated away from much of the teachings of Islam, one might be surprised to hear that. You say, well, why? We see images all the time in the society, in our Muslim societies that we've been in, etc. We hear music all the time, these type of things. However, the principle of understanding Islam is not that Islam is what people do. Islam is not what Muslims do, but what Muslims should do. And to know what they should do, one needs to learn what are in fact the teachings of Islam. And then after knowing that, then you judge Muslims in accordance with what Islam is. Not to judge Islam according to what Muslims do. The next topic that we'll be looking at is that of modern science and Islam. We know from the tradition which developed in Europe, where there was a clash between the church and science, where scientists were burnt at the stake, their books were burnt, and when their theories seemed to contradict or to challenge the beliefs of the church, which was dominant, the Catholic Church, which was dominant in Europe at the time, there was an attempt to crush science and scientific inquiry, etc., etc. And from that experience, the general understanding in the minds of many is that science and religion don't mix. They're at odds with each other. However, when one comes into the realm of Islam, one finds that, no, this is not the case. Some of the leading scientists of the Muslim world were great theologians. They were quite knowledgeable Muslims. In fact, much of the knowledge which spurned the Renaissance and the development of science in the West, it came through Muslim Spain and Syria and Baghdad, Damascus and Baghdad. This is where the science was preserved during the Dark Ages, which was what was known as the Dark Ages, the Middle Ages in Europe. These were the ages of, the golden ages of science in the Muslim world. So Islam is not opposed to science. In fact, on a conceptual level, science involves the discovery of God's laws in His creation. Human beings are not creating anything. They're only discovering these laws and then applying them. Right? God gives them the ability to apply them. So the laws themselves are from whom? From God. So knowledge of science, what is true science, is ultimately from God. We're not talking about the theory and the false ideas that are in the minds of some scientists who promote, for example, that this world is without beginning. You know, the atheists among them who deny God's existence, etc. This is not scientific. There's no scientific proof. One cannot prove by science God's non-existence. In fact, science points to God's existence rather than to his non-existence. However, we're saying that when we look at the issue of scientific fact, we find that in fact it's in harmony with Islamic teachings. You find many verses in the Quran which address points and issues which modern science has only just begun to find, to discover. You know, you find when Islam speaks about the issue of the Big Bang, for example. In modern times we talk about the Big Bang, or the development of the universe. You can find a verse in the Quran in the 51st chapter, verse 47. You'll find Allah saying, I built the heavens with power, and it is I who am expanding it. In the 21st chapter, verse 31, you'll find similar statements of the expansion of the universe. You'll also find the movement of the sun mentioned in the Quran, you know, that it has its own cycle, that it's moving, and that it's running to an end, an ending point where the sun will end. You find that in the 36th chapter, verse 38. And you even find mentioned in the Quran that human beings will pass through the heavens, leave the earth and pass into the heavens, you know, going to the moon or whatever. You can find in the 51st chapter, verse 33, Allah saying there, O assembly of jinns and humans, if you can penetrate the regions of the heavens and the earth, then penetrate them. You will not do that except with the authority, meaning the authority of God. So, I mean, there is plenty, you know, plenty has been written about the Quran and modern science. From the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad, we find things which are only recently scientifically discovered based on modern scientific knowledge. So, Islam is not in opposition to science, not science fact, and the use of science for the benefit of human lives, etc. I know we have some sects amongst people, Christians, who shun modern science. They will drive around in buggies. They don't use electricity. They'll, you know, Islam is not in this kind of state. No, Islam will use whatever we can find in the society which is beneficial, scientific principles, technology, using it for the benefit of human beings and their society. This is part of and parcel of living and the right that humans have. Islam has no problem with this at all. But when we come to some of the theories of science, this is where we may find some problems. And one of the biggest problems is that of evolution. A modern scientific theory, though it's presented as a fact, which in fact is in direct opposition to Islamic teachings. And the theory of evolution will be discussed at some length in our coming segment. And we hope that you will come along to the program with us. You will follow our next program and be enlightened with regards to the Islamic position on evolution. As I said, evolutionary theory, not evolutionary fact. The facts which the evolutionists use, no one can deny. We have bones. These bones represent animals which were here on the earth, which died out. They are ancestors to living animals today. No one can deny these things. But how do we interpret these bones? That we will have a look at in our next program. With that, dear viewers, I'd like to thank you for being with us in this segment of our program, Contemporary Issues. You may write in to us, Sharjah Television, P.O. Box 111, Sharjah, UAE, if you have some suggestions of contemporary issues you'd like to hear. Otherwise, you may call into the television, or you may email myself at fld3@hotmail.com if you have certain questions. And we hope to see you in our coming programs. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.